She was standing on my sidewalk when I got home. I saw her before I even pulled into the driveway, just standing there under the streetlight, holding something white in her hands. An envelope, maybe. She didn't move when I cut the engine, didn't wave, just stood there, waiting. I stayed in the truck longer than I needed to, checked my phone, pretended to look for something in the glove box, anything to delay the inevitable, but she wasn't leaving. I got out, walked toward her slowly, keys jangling in my hand. She looked tired, more tired than I'd ever seen her. "You've been avoiding me," she said softly. I stopped a few feet away. "Yeah. Why?" I exhaled, looked down at the cracked pavement between us. "Because looking at you hurts." She didn't flinch, didn't look away, just stood there, holding that envelope like it weighed 100 pounds. "I know," she said. "It hurts me too." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just stood there waiting for her to leave. But she didn't. "Can I come in?" she asked. I should have said no. Should have told her it was late, that I had work in the morning, that this, whatever this was, wasn't a good idea. But I didn't. I nodded, unlocked the door, let her in. What happened next would take weeks to understand. But to make sense of it, I need to take you back. Back to when I didn't know her name. Back to when I was just the guy who delivered her mail. Let me start from the beginning. I've been a mailman for 6 years. Not a postal worker. Not a mail carrier. A mailman. That's what everyone in town calls it, and that's what it feels like. Walking the same routes, carrying the same bag, seeing the same faces day after day. It's steady work. Reliable. The kind of job that doesn't ask much of you except that you show up and do it. I took the job after my grandparents passed. They left me the house. A small 2-bedroom on Maple Street with a front porch that creaks and a backyard I never use. I was 23 then, freshly graduated with a degree in something I never ended up using, and suddenly responsible for a mortgage I didn't ask for. The post office was hiring. I applied, got the job within a week. That was 6 years ago. Now I'm 29, and my life looks almost exactly the same as it did back then. I wake up at 5:30 every morning, make coffee in the same chipped mug my grandfather used, toast or oatmeal, depending on how much energy I have. By 6:15, I'm out the door. The post office is a 10-minute drive, longer if I hit the one stoplight in town at the wrong time. The building smells like old paper and industrial cleaner. I clock in, sort my route for the day, load up the truck. By 7:30, I'm on the road. My route covers the east side of town, residential mostly. Tree-lined streets with modest houses and chain-link fences. I know every address by heart, every dog that barks when I walk up, every mailbox that sticks, every porch with the loose board I've learned to step over. I know Mrs. Callahan at 12:47. Oakwood gets her medications delivered every third Thursday. I know the Hendersons at 890 Birch Lane are always fighting. I can hear them through the door when I drop off their packages. I know the guy at 562 Elm never picks up his mail, and it piles up in his box until I have to leave a notice. I know all of this, but none of them know me. I'm just the mailman. I don't mean that in a self-pitying way. It's just a fact. I show up, I hand them their letters, they say thanks if they say anything at all, and I move on. There's no reason for them to know my name. No reason for them to ask how I'm doing or what I did last weekend. And honestly, I wouldn't know what to tell them if they did. Most days, I finish my route by 3. I drive back to the post office, clock out, and go home. Sometimes I stop at the grocery store. Sometimes I grab takeout from the diner on 4th Street. But most of the time, I just go home. The house is always quiet when I walk in. I'll turn on the TV for noise, make dinner, sit on the couch and eat while some show I'm not really watching plays in the background. After that, I'll do the dishes, maybe read for a bit, then go to bed. I used to try harder. I really did. After I graduated, I made an effort. Went out with coworkers, joined a recreational softball league, even tried a dating app for a few months. But it all felt like work, forced. Like I was performing some version of a social life I was supposed to want but didn't actually enjoy. The coworkers stopped inviting me out after I declined enough times. The softball league ended when the season did, and I didn't sign up again. The dating app was a disaster. Endless small talk with strangers who felt just as exhausted by the whole process as I was. Eventually, I stopped trying. It wasn't a conscious decision. It just happened. One day I realized it had been 3 months since I'd gone anywhere that wasn't work or the grocery store, and I didn't feel bad about it. I felt relieved. People talk about loneliness like it's this crushing, unbearable thing. And maybe for some people it is. But for me, it's just quiet, predictable, safe. I don't have to worry about saying the wrong thing or being too much or not enough. I don't have to perform. I can just exist. In my own space, on my own terms. Most days, that's enough. But some days, usually late at night when the house feels a little too quiet and the TV's been off for too long, I'll wonder what it would be like to have someone to talk to. Not about anything important, just someone. I wonder what it would be like to come home and have another person there. To cook dinner for 2 instead of 1. To have a reason to stay up past 9:30 on a weeknight. But then morning comes and I get up, and I make my coffee and I go to work, and the wondering fades. Because this is my life, and it's fine. It's fine. I know every street in this town, every house, every face. I've delivered birthday cards and college acceptance letters and medical bills and jury summonses. I've seen people move in and move out. I've watched kids grow up, seen marriages fall apart, noticed when someone stops getting mail because they've died or moved into a nursing home. I see all of it, but no one sees me, and maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. Maybe some people are just meant to be in the background. Observers. The ones who show up, do the job, and disappear. I've made peace with that. Or at least I thought I had. Then she moved in. Before I tell you what happened next, do me a favor. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from. I love hearing from you all. And if you're finding this worthwhile, hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps me keep bringing you these stories. Now, let me tell you what changed everything. It was a Tuesday in late April when I first saw her. I remember because Tuesdays are always light on my route, mostly junk mail and the occasional package. I was working through the 1100 block of Sycamore Street, a row of rental houses that see a lot of turnover. People move in, stay a year or two, then leave. I rarely learn their names. Number 1147 had been empty for a month. The grass was getting long, and there was a faded "for rent" sign still stuck in the front yard. But that morning there was a car in the driveway, an older sedan with out-of-state plates, and the front door was propped open. Someone had moved in. I grabbed the mail for that address, a few pieces of forwarded mail and a utilities bill, and walked up the cracked concrete path to the porch. I was about to leave everything in the mailbox when I heard her voice. "Excuse me?" I turned. She was standing in the doorway, one hand on the frame like she needed it for support. She looked like she was in her early 30s, wearing jeans and an oversized sweater that had seen better days. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and there were dark circles under her eyes. "Sorry," she said, stepping out onto the porch. "I didn't mean to startle you. I wanted to make sure the mail was being forwarded correctly. I just moved in a few days ago." "It is," I said, holding up the stack. "Got a few pieces here for you." She came down the steps and took them from me, glancing through the envelopes quickly. Her hands were shaking slightly. I noticed, but didn't say anything. "Thanks," she said quietly. Then she looked up at me, managed a small smile. "I'm sorry. I don't think I caught your name." "I didn't give it," I said. Then realizing how that sounded, I added, "It's Daniel." "Daniel," she repeated like she was testing it out. "I'm Emma. Nice to meet you." "You too." There was a pause. She looked down at the mail in her hands again, and I saw her jaw tighten when she saw one of the return addresses. Something legal from the look of it. "Well," I said, stepping back toward the sidewalk. "I'll see you around." "Yeah," she said. "Thanks again." I finished the rest of the route, but I kept thinking about her. Not in any specific way, just noticing. The way she'd stood on that porch like she wasn't sure she was allowed to be there. The way her hands shook. The way she'd smiled like it cost her something. Over the next week, I saw her a few more times. Always briefly. She'd be bringing in groceries or sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee or pulling weeds from the front flower bed that had been neglected for months. We'd wave, exchange a quick, "Good morning," nothing more. But I noticed things. She got a lot of mail, more than most people, and it wasn't the normal kind, credit card offers and grocery store coupons. It was serious mail, envelopes from law offices, collection agencies, official-looking documents with "important" stamped on the front. She never opened them on the porch, just took them inside quickly, like she didn't want anyone to see. There were never any other cars in the driveway. No visitors, no friends stopping by. Just her, alone in that house. It reminded me of myself. 2 weeks after she moved in, I was delivering on a Thursday afternoon, later than usual because I'd had to cover part of someone else's route. It was almost 4 o'clock by the time I got to Sycamore Street. Emma was sitting on the porch steps. She wasn't doing anything, just sitting there, staring at the street, arms wrapped around her knees. She looked small, like she'd folded in on herself. I hesitated at the mailbox. I could just leave the mail and go. That's what I usually did. But something about the way she was sitting, the complete stillness of it, made me stop. "You okay?" I asked. She looked up, startled, like she hadn't even noticed me walk up. For a second, she just stared at me. Then she nodded. "Yeah," she said. "Yeah, I'm fine." She wasn't fine. I stood there for a moment, mail still in my hand. I should have just given it to her and left. Should have minded my own business. But I didn't. "You want some water or something?" I asked. She blinked. "What?" "Water. It's hot out. You look like you could use some." She stared at me like I'd just spoken a different language. Then slowly she shook her head. "No, I'm okay, but thank you." I nodded, handed her the mail, started to turn away. "Daniel?" I stopped. She was standing now, holding the stack of envelopes against her chest like a shield. "You're the only person who's been kind to me since I moved here," she said quietly. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. She looked down at the mail in her hands, then back up at me. "Do you ever feel like you're invisible?" she asked. The question hit me harder than it should have. "Yeah," I said, "all the time." She smiled, but it was sad. The kind of smile that said she understood exactly what I meant. "Me too," she said. We stood there for a moment, not saying anything. The street was empty. The trees rustled in the breeze. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked. "I should get back to it," I finally said. "Right, yeah, of course." She stepped back toward the porch. "Thanks, Daniel." "No problem." I walked back to the truck, finished the route, and drove home. But that night, lying in bed, I kept thinking about what she'd said. "You're the only person who's been kind to me since I moved here." I wondered what had happened, why she'd moved, why she looked so tired, why she was alone. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something other than the quiet hum of routine. I felt curious. The next morning, I brought her coffee. I don't know why I did it. It wasn't planned. I just stopped at the gas station on my way to work, bought 2 cups instead of 1, and when I got to her house, I walked up to the porch and knocked. She opened the door looking confused, still in pajama pants and an old t-shirt. "I had an extra," I said, holding out the cup. "Thought you might want it." She stared at the coffee like it was some kind of trick. Then she took it. "Thank you," she said softly. "No problem." I turned to leave, but she spoke again. "Daniel?" I looked back. Do you have a minute?" I glanced at my watch. I was already running a few minutes behind, but something in her voice made me nod. "Yeah, sure." She stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind her. We sat down on the steps, coffee cups in hand, and for a while we didn't say anything. Just sat there watching the morning light filter through the trees. "I moved here from Ohio," she finally said. "Columbus, I needed a fresh start." I nodded, took a sip of my coffee. "Divorce?" I asked. "Yeah." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is it that obvious?" "The mail," I said. "Law offices, court documents, I see it a lot." She looked down at her cup. "Right. Of course you do. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to." "No, it's fine." She took a breath. "We were married for 7 years, have a son. He's 5. The divorce was finalized 6 months ago, but the custody battle is still going. My ex has primary custody. I get supervised visitation twice a month." Her voice cracked on that last part. "I'm sorry," I said. She shook her head. "It's my fault. I wasn't doing well after he was born. Postpartum depression, they called it. But I didn't get help soon enough, and my ex, he used it against me. Told the judge I was unstable. His family backed him up. They have money, good lawyers. I had nothing. That's not fair." "No," she said quietly. "It's not. But fair doesn't matter in family court. What matters is who can afford the better attorney." We sat in silence for a moment. "Why here?" I asked. "Why this town?" She shrugged. "It was far enough away to feel like a new start, but close enough that I can still make the drive for visitation. And rent was cheap. I'm working remotely now, data entry, nothing glamorous, but it pays enough to cover the basics. No family here. No family anywhere that matters. She took a sip of her coffee. My parents sided with my ex, said I needed to get my act together. His family never liked me to begin with, so here I am, starting over in a town where I don't know anyone. You know me? I said. She looked at me, and for the first time she smiled for real. Small, but genuine. Yeah, she said. I guess I do. That became our routine. Every morning I'd stop at the gas station, buy 2 coffees and bring one to her porch. At first we'd only talk for 5 or 10 minutes, just long enough for me to not be late for work. But after a week or so, I started showing up a little earlier, giving myself more time. We talked about small things mostly. The weather, the town. She asked about my job and I told her about the routes, the regulars, the weird mail I'd delivered over the years. She told me about her work. Mind-numbing, she said, but it kept her distracted. She never asked why I kept coming back. And I never offered an explanation. I didn't have one. By the 3rd week, I started noticing changes. She looked a little less tired. Her porch was cleaner. She'd swept away the dead leaves and put a small potted plant by the door. The yard was mowed. She'd even hung a bird feeder in the tree out front. Small things, but they mattered. One Saturday morning, I drove past her house on my way to the hardware store and saw her in the front yard, struggling with a section of fence that had come loose. I pulled over without thinking. Need a hand? I called out. She looked up, surprised. I didn't know you worked weekends. I don't, just saw you out here. She wiped her forehead with the back of her hand. I've been trying to fix this for an hour. I have no idea what I'm doing. Let me see. I walked over, crouched down, examined the fence post. It was rotted through at the base, leaning at a 45-degree angle. The whole section would need to be replaced. This isn't a quick fix, I said. You'll need a new post, concrete, maybe some fresh boards. She sighed. Of course. I can help, I said. If you want, I've got some tools in my truck. She hesitated. I don't want to take up your whole Saturday. I wasn't doing anything anyway. That was true. I'd planned to go to the hardware store, come home, and probably spend the rest of the day watching TV. Okay, she said. Thank you. We spent the next 4 hours working on that fence. I drove to the hardware store, bought the supplies, came back, and we got to work. She helped where she could, holding boards steady, mixing concrete, handing me tools when I asked. We didn't talk much, just worked. But the silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was easy, natural. By late afternoon, the fence was fixed. We stood back, admiring the work, both of us sweaty and covered in dirt. Looks good, she said. Yeah, should hold for a few years at least. She turned to me. Can I at least buy you dinner? As a thank you? I started to decline. Old habit, but stopped myself. Sure, I said, that'd be nice. We ordered pizza, sat on her back porch, eating straight from the box, drinking cheap beer she'd bought from the corner store. The sun was setting, casting everything in soft orange light. I don't have friends here, she said suddenly. I looked at her. I mean, I know that's obvious, she continued, but I wanted to say it out loud. I don't have friends here. I don't have friends anywhere, really. I lost most of them during the divorce. People take sides, you know. And the ones who didn't take sides just drifted away. It was too messy, too uncomfortable. I get that, I said. Do you have friends? I thought about it. Not really. Used to have co-workers I'd hang out with, but that faded. I'm not good at keeping in touch. Me neither. We sat in silence for a moment. This is nice, though, she said. Just sitting here, not having to explain myself or perform or pretend I'm okay when I'm not. Yeah, I said. It is. She looked at me. Do you ever feel like everyone else got a handbook on how to be a person and you just didn't? I laughed. All the time. Good, she said, smiling. Then we're in the same boat. After that night, things shifted. I started coming over more often, not every day. I didn't want to overstep, but a few times a week. I'd bring dinner, or she'd cook something simple and we'd eat together on her porch or in her small living room. We watched movies, old ones mostly, because neither of us had the energy for anything new or complicated. We'd sit on her couch a comfortable distance apart and let the films play while we half watched and half talked. She told me more about her son. His name was Owen. He loved dinosaurs and hated broccoli and had her eyes. She missed him so much it physically hurt, she said. Every day felt like waiting for the next visitation, waiting for the court to reconsider, waiting for something to change. I told her about my grandparents, how they'd raised me after my parents split when I was 8, how my grandfather taught me how to fix things, fences, cars, leaky faucets, how my grandmother made me promise I'd keep the house after they were gone, and how sometimes I felt guilty that I'd let it sit mostly empty for 6 years. You're keeping it alive, Emma said. That's what matters, I guess. No, really, you could have sold it, moved somewhere else, but you didn't, you stayed. That means something. I hadn't thought of it that way before. By the 5th week, we'd fallen into a rhythm, a routine. She'd text me in the evening, just a simple, "You busy?" And I'd drive over. We'd cook together or order takeout, and we'd talk. Real talk. The kind that happens late at night when you're too tired to keep your guard up. She told me about the guilt, how it sat in her chest like a weight, how she replayed every moment of Owen's early years, wondering what she could have done differently, how she'd missed signs of her own depression because she was too busy trying to be the perfect mother, the perfect wife, how her ex had watched her fall apart and used it as ammunition instead of helping her. He told the court I was a danger to our son, she said one night, voice shaking, that I couldn't be trusted alone with him. And the worst part is, I started to believe it. I started to think maybe he was right. Maybe I was broken. Maybe Owen was better off without me. That's not true, I said. How do you know? Because you're here. You moved across state lines just to be close enough to see him twice a month. You're fighting for him. That's not what a bad mother does. She looked at me, eyes glassy. Thank you. I didn't know what else to say, so I just stayed. Sat next to her on the couch while she cried quietly and didn't try to fix it. Didn't offer empty reassurances. Just let her feel it. After a while, she wiped her eyes and laughed softly. I'm sorry, you didn't sign up for this. Sign up for what? Emotional baggage, messy divorce, a woman who cries on her couch at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. I don't mind, I said. And I meant it. She looked at me for a long moment. Why are you doing this, Daniel? Doing what? This, coming over, spending time with me. You could be anywhere else. I thought about how to answer, tried to find the right words. Because I don't want to be anywhere else, I finally said. She smiled, small and sad. Me neither. The 6th week, she told me about her job, how her boss had been pressuring her to come back to the office, how she'd been working remotely since the move, but the company was shifting priorities. They wanted her in Columbus 3 days a week, starting next month. I can't do that, she said. If I move back, I lose the lease here. I lose proximity to Owen. The custody agreement is specific. I have to stay within 100 miles. Can you find a different job? I've been looking, but everything that pays enough is either too far away or requires experience I don't have. I'm stuck. I could see the panic in her eyes, the fear that everything she'd been building here was about to collapse. We'll figure it out, I said. We? I paused. I just mean, you'll figure it out. You have time. But she smiled, and I realized I'd meant what I'd said. We, not just her. Somewhere along the way, it had become we. By the 7th week, something had settled between us. An understanding. She didn't have to explain herself anymore, and neither did I. We just existed together, in the same space, doing ordinary things. I fixed the leaky faucet in her bathroom. She washed my work uniform when my washing machine finally gave out. We grocery shopped together on Sunday afternoons, splitting the cost of things we'd both eat during the week. We took walks around the neighborhood in the evenings, not saying much, just moving through the quiet together. One night after dinner, we were sitting on her porch and she turned to me. I feel safe with you, she said. I looked at her. What do you mean? I don't feel like I have to be anyone other than who I am. I don't have to pretend I'm okay when I'm not. I don't have to hide the mess. You just let me be. I didn't know how to respond to that. No one had ever said anything like that to me before. I'm not trying to save you, I said, if that's what you're worried about. I know, she said. That's why it feels safe. We sat in silence for a while, the warm night air wrapping around us. Thank you, she said softly, for staying. I wanted to tell her she didn't need to thank me, that I wasn't doing her a favor. That being here, with her, was the first time in years I'd felt like I was actually living instead of just going through the motions. But I didn't say any of that. I just nodded. I'm not going anywhere, I said. And I meant it. It started with a phone call. I was at her place on a Thursday night, helping her assemble a bookshelf she'd bought secondhand. We were halfway through when her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, and her entire body went rigid. I have to take this, she said, her voice tight. You want me to step outside? No, stay, she answered. Hello. I couldn't hear the other end, but I watched her face change. The color drained from her cheeks. Her jaw clenched. That's not what the agreement says, she said, her voice shaking. You can't just… The voice on the other end cut her off. She closed her eyes. Fine. I'll call my lawyer. She hung up without saying goodbye. For a moment she just stood there, phone clutched in her hand, breathing hard. Emma? That was my ex, she said quietly. He's trying to reduce my visitation, again. On what grounds? He says I'm not stable enough for unsupervised visits. He wants everything monitored now. 2 hours instead of 4. Only at a court-approved facility. Her voice cracked. He's trying to take away the little time I have left. I set down the screwdriver. Can he do that? If he can convince a judge, yes. She sank down onto the couch, putting her head in her hands. His family has money, Daniel. They have lawyers who do this for a living. I have a court-appointed attorney who's handling 12 other cases. I can't fight this. Then we get you a better lawyer. With what money? She looked up at me, eyes red. I'm barely making rent. I can't afford… We'll figure it out. She shook her head. You keep saying that, but some things can't be figured out. Some things are just… broken. I didn't have an answer for that. So I just sat down next to her and stayed quiet. After a while, she leaned against me. I put my arm around her shoulders. We sat like that for a long time, the half-assembled bookshelf forgotten on the floor. 2 days later, he showed up in town. I was finishing my route on Sycamore Street when I saw the car in her driveway. A black SUV, newer model, out-of-state plates. A man was standing on her porch, knocking hard on the door. Emma opened it. Even from the street, I could see how small she looked standing in the doorway. I should have kept walking. It wasn't my business, but I didn't. I walked up the driveway, mail bag still over my shoulder. Can I help you? I asked. The man turned. He was tall, clean-cut, wearing a polo shirt and khakis. Everything about him screamed money and confidence. Who are you? He asked. I'm the mailman, and you're blocking the driveway. His eyes narrowed. I'm here to talk to my ex-wife, privately. Emma? I looked past him. You okay? She nodded, but her hands were shaking. It's fine, Daniel. He's just leaving. Actually, I'm not, the man said. He turned back to her. We need to talk about the documents I sent you. You haven't signed them. Because I'm not giving up my visitation rights. You're not giving them up. You're agreeing to modified terms. Terms that cut my time with Owen in half. For his safety. He's safe with me. The man's jaw tightened. That's not what the therapist said. Emma's face went pale. You told them I was unstable. I told them the truth. You lied to protect yourself. I stepped forward. I think you should go. He looked at me like I was an insect. And I think you should mind your own business. She asked you to leave. So leave. For a moment I thought he might actually take a swing at me. His hands clenched into fists, his face flushed with anger. But then he took a breath, smoothed down his shirt and forced a smile. Fine. He looked at Emma. But you're signing those papers one way or another. If you don't, I'll file for full custody. No visitation at all. And trust me, I'll win. He walked back to his SUV, got in, and drove away. Emma stood frozen in the doorway. You okay? I asked. She nodded, but tears were streaming down her face. He's going to take him away completely. I know he is. No, he's not. You don't know that. We'll fight it. How? She looked at me, desperate. I don't have the money, Daniel. I don't have the resources. I don't have anything. I didn't have an answer. Because she was right. But I also wasn't going to let her face this alone. Over the next week, things got worse. Word got around town. Small towns are like that. Gossip spreads faster than wildfire. Someone must have seen the SUV in her driveway. Someone else must have heard about the custody fight. And suddenly, people were talking. I noticed it at work first. A few co-workers started asking questions. That woman on Sycamore Street, you know her, right? I deliver her mail. I heard she lost custody of her kid. Something about being unstable. I didn't respond, just kept sorting letters. But the rumors kept coming. At the grocery store, I saw two women whispering while Emma was in the next aisle over. At the coffee shop, the barista gave her a strange look when she came in. People who'd smiled at her a month ago now avoided eye contact. And then the rumors shifted. They started saying things about me. Did you hear the mailman's seeing that new woman on Sycamore? Isn't that inappropriate? Isn't there some kind of rule about that? I heard she's using him to look stable for court. I heard it from a customer on my route, Mrs. Patterson, who lived on Elm Street and always left cookies in her mailbox at Christmas. She pulled me aside one afternoon, her face full of concern. Daniel, honey, I don't mean to pry, but are you involved with that woman? The one with the custody issues? We're friends, I said. People are talking, dear. They're saying she's trouble, that you should be careful. I appreciate the concern, but I'm fine. She frowned. Just be smart, okay? You don't want to get caught up in someone else's mess. I finished the route and drove straight to Emma's house. She was sitting on the porch steps staring at nothing. They're talking about me, she said before I could even get out of the truck. I know. About us. I know. She looked up at me. This is going to make things worse, isn't it, for the custody case? If they think I'm involved with someone, if they think I'm distracted or, you're not doing anything wrong. That doesn't matter. It's ammunition. His lawyer will twist it. They'll say I'm prioritizing a relationship over my son. They can say whatever they want. It doesn't change the truth. She shook her head. You don't understand how this works. Perception is everything in family court. And right now the perception is that I'm a mess who's shacking up with the mailman instead of focusing on getting her life together. So what do you want me to do? Stop coming around? She didn't answer right away. Maybe that would be best, she finally said, voice barely above a whisper. I felt something tighten in my chest. Is that what you want? I don't know what I want. She stood up, pacing. I want my son back. I want my life back. I want to stop feeling like I'm drowning every single day. And I want... She stopped, looking at me. I want you here, but I can't have both. You shouldn't have to choose, but I do. Tears streamed down her face. Don't you see? Everything I touch falls apart. My marriage, my family, my relationship with my son, and now I'm dragging you into it. You're getting whispered about at work. People are judging you because of me. How is that fair? I don't care what people say. You should, but I don't. She stared at me, desperate and broken. Why are you doing this? Because you matter, I said simply. Because for the first time in years, I feel like my life actually means something, and I'm not walking away just because it's hard. She covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. I crossed the porch and pulled her into a hug. She collapsed against me, sobbing into my chest. I held her tight, feeling her break apart, wishing I could take the weight off her shoulders. I'm so tired, Daniel, she whispered. I'm so tired of fighting. I know. I don't know if I can keep doing this. You don't have to do it alone. She pulled back, looking up at me. But what if they're right? What if I am broken? What if I can't give Owen what he needs? You're not broken, I said firmly. You're hurting. There's a difference. She searched my face like she was looking for proof, looking for something to hold on to. Promise me something, she said. What? Promise me you won't let me disappear. I didn't understand at first, but then I saw the look in her eyes, the emptiness creeping in at the edges, and I understood. I promise, I said. I'm not going anywhere. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Okay. The next morning I got called into my supervisor's office at the post office. Gary was a decent guy, mid-50s, balding, always wore the same faded Broncos cap. He looked uncomfortable as I sat down. Look, Daniel, he said. I'm not trying to get into your personal business, but I've been getting questions. About what? About your relationship with a resident on your route, the woman on Sycamore Street. I kept my face neutral. We're friends. I get that, but people are talking, and when people talk, it becomes my problem. He sighed. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong. I'm just saying, be careful, keep it professional on company time. Don't give anyone a reason to file a complaint. Understood. He nodded. That's all, just watch yourself, okay? I left the office feeling like the walls were closing in. Everywhere I turned, people were watching, judging, waiting for us to fail. And for the first time, I started to wonder if Emma was right. Maybe I should walk away. Maybe it would be easier for both of us. But then I thought about the way she'd looked at me on the porch, the way she'd asked me not to let her disappear, and I knew I couldn't. I wouldn't. That night, Emma called me at 11 p.m. "Can you come over?" she asked, her voice strange, distant. "What's wrong?" "Just, please, can you come?" I drove over in my pajama pants and a hoodie, breaking every speed limit. When I got there, she was sitting on the kitchen floor, surrounded by papers, court documents, bills, letters from her ex's attorney, everything spread out around her like wreckage. "I can't do this anymore," she said when I walked in. "Emma, I'm going to sign the papers, give up the visitation. It's easier that way." "No, it's not." "Yes, it is." She looked up at me, face streaked with tears. "I'm making everything worse. For Owen, for you, for everyone. If I just let go, everyone can move on." I knelt down in front of her. "You don't mean that." "I do." "No, you don't." She shook her head, sobbing. "I'm not strong enough for this." "Yes, you are. You don't know that." "I do," I said, "because I've watched you get up every single morning even when you didn't want to. I've watched you fight when everyone told you to give up. You are the strongest person I know." She looked at me like she didn't believe it, but she also didn't look away. "What if I lose?" she whispered. "Then we try again." We, I repeated. "I'm not letting you disappear, Emma. I promised you that, and I keep my promises." She stared at me for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. "Okay," she whispered, "okay." I helped her gather up the papers, put them away, and made her tea. We sat on the couch until she fell asleep against my shoulder. I stayed there all night, watching over her, making sure she didn't disappear into the dark. Because that's what you do for people you care about. You stay. It was 3 days later when she showed up at my door. I'd just gotten home from work. It was almost 6 p.m. In the sun starting to dip below the trees. I was still in my uniform, keys in hand, when I saw her standing on my sidewalk under the streetlight. She was holding an envelope, the same one from the hook, the one with the custody modification papers inside. "You've been avoiding me," she said softly. It was true. I had been. Not intentionally, or maybe it was intentional, I didn't know anymore. After that night on her kitchen floor, something had shifted. I'd felt the weight of what I was signing up for. The gossip, the judgment, the possibility that no matter how hard we fought, she might still lose Owen, that I might watch her break completely, and there'd be nothing I could do to stop it. So I'd kept my distance. Still delivered her mail, but I didn't linger, didn't stop for coffee, didn't text. I told myself it was for her own good, that she needed space to focus on the custody battle without the added complication of me. But standing there, looking at her now, I knew that was a lie. I'd pulled away because I was scared. "Yeah," I admitted. "I have been." "Why?" I looked down at the cracked pavement between us. "Because looking at you hurts." She didn't flinch, didn't look away. "I know. It hurts me too." We stood there in silence. A car passed on the street. A dog barked somewhere down the block. "Can I come in?" she asked. I should have said no. Should have told her it was late, that I had work in the morning, that this, whatever this was, wasn't sustainable. But I didn't. I unlocked the door and let her in. We sat at my kitchen table. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. She set the envelope down between us, her hands shaking slightly. "I came to tell you I'm leaving," she said. My stomach dropped. "What?" "I'm going back to Ohio. I talked to my boss. They agreed to let me work from the Columbus office again. I can find a cheaper apartment there, be closer to the courthouse for the hearings. It makes more sense." "What about Owen?" "The custody agreement says you have to stay within 100 miles. I'll petition to modify it. My lawyer thinks the judge will allow it since I'm moving closer, not farther." She looked down at her hands. "It's the smart thing to do. Is that what you want?" She didn't answer right away. When she finally looked up, her eyes were glassy. "I want my son back," she said. "And I want to stop dragging you into my mess. Those are the only two things I'm sure about right now." "I told you you're not—" "Yes, I am." Her voice broke. "People are talking about you, Daniel. Your boss called you in because of me. You're getting judged, getting looks, getting questioned, all because you decided to be kind to a broken woman who can't get her life together. You're not broken." "Yes, I am." She stood up, pacing. "I lost custody of my son. I can barely afford rent. I cry on my kitchen floor at midnight surrounded by court papers I can't afford to fight. I am the definition of broken. You're also the strongest person I know. She laughed bitterly. You keep saying that, but you don't have to keep pretending. You don't owe me anything. You've done more than enough. You've been kinder to me than anyone in years. But you don't have to keep sacrificing your peace for mine. I stood up, walked over to her. She backed away slightly, but I kept coming until we were face to face. What if I want to? I said. What? What if I don't want my old peace back? What if the last 2 months have been the most awake I've felt in 6 years? She stared at me. Daniel, I've been going through the motions since my grandparents died. I said. Wake up, go to work, come home, go to sleep, repeat. I convinced myself that was enough, that being alone was easier, safer. And then you moved in across town and suddenly I had a reason to stop at the gas station for coffee, a reason to check my phone, a reason to come home and actually want to be awake. That's not fair to you. Why not? Because you deserve someone who isn't falling apart, someone who doesn't come with custody battles and court dates, and an ex-husband who shows up unannounced. Someone easy. I don't want easy, I said. I want real. And you're the realest person I've ever met. Tears streamed down her face. You're going to regret this. Maybe, I admitted, but I'd regret walking away more. She shook her head. You don't understand what you're signing up for. Then explain it to me. It's not going to get easier, Daniel. The custody case could take months, years even, and I might lose. I probably will lose. And when that happens, I don't know what I'll look like on the other side. I don't know if I'll be the same person. I don't know if I'll be someone you still want around. I'll take that risk. Why? I took a breath. Because I'm tired of being invisible. And when I'm with you, I'm not. You see me, really see me. Not just the guy who delivers mail, not just the quiet neighbor. You see all of it, and you don't look away. She covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. I stepped closer, gently pulled her hands away, held them in mine. I'm not going anywhere, I said firmly. Not because I'm trying to save you, but because I don't want to be alone anymore. And neither do you. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. What if I keep falling apart? Then I'll be there when you do. What if it's too much? Then we'll figure it out. You keep saying that. Because I mean it. She searched my face looking for doubt, for hesitation, for any sign that I didn't understand what I was committing to. But I did understand. I understood exactly what this meant. The gossip would continue. The judgment would get worse before it got better. The custody battle might drag on for years. There were no guarantees. No happy ending written in stone. But none of that mattered. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't just existing. I was choosing, actively choosing to stay, to fight, to be present. I don't know how to let people stay, Emma whispered. Then I'll teach you, I said. And you can teach me how to stop hiding. She laughed through her tears. Deal. I pulled her into a hug. She collapsed against me, and I held her tight, feeling her breathing slowly steady. I'm scared, she said against my chest. Me too. What if we can't do this? Then we'll fail together. She pulled back slightly, looking up at me. You really mean that? Every word. She smiled, small, fragile, but real. Okay. Okay? Okay? She nodded. I'll stay. We'll figure it out. I felt something loosen in my chest. Relief. Hope. Something I hadn't felt in years. You're not going to regret this? She asked. Probably, I admitted. But I'd rather regret trying than regret walking away. She laughed. Actually laughed. You know, for a mailman, you're pretty wise. I've delivered a lot of letters. You pick things up. She shook her head, still smiling. Then she looked down at the envelope on the table. I'm not signing those papers, she said. Good. I'm going to fight, even if I lose. You won't be fighting alone. She looked at me, eyes still red but clearer now, steadier. Thank you. For what? For staying. I squeezed her hand. Thank you for letting me. We stood there in my quiet kitchen, the evening light fading through the windows, and for the first time in weeks, the weight felt a little lighter, not gone, not fixed, but bearable, because we were carrying it together, and that made all the difference. She left an hour later, but before she did, she turned to me at the door. Daniel? Yeah? I know people are going to keep talking, And I know it's going to get harder before it gets easier, but I just want you to know, I see you too, and I'm not going anywhere either." I nodded, unable to find the words. She smiled, stepped out into the night, and drove away. I stood in the doorway for a long time after she left, watching the empty street, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Not happiness exactly, not yet, but possibility, and that was enough. Bloco 6. Epílogo de Estabilidad. 6 months later, I was sitting on Emma's porch, drinking coffee and watching the morning light filter through the trees. It was a Saturday, my day off, but I'd stopped sleeping in weeks ago. Habit, maybe. Or maybe I just liked the quiet of early mornings now, liked having a reason to be awake. Emma came out a few minutes later, her own cup in hand, and sat down next to me on the steps. She didn't say anything, just settled in, shoulder touching mine, and watched the street. The custody battle was still ongoing. Her lawyer had managed to push back against the modified terms. The judge ruled that supervised visitation would continue, but at the original 4-hour intervals, not the reduced 2. It wasn't a win exactly, but it wasn't a loss either. Small victories. That's what her lawyer called them. Emma had learned to take what she could get. She'd seen Owen 3 times since that night in my kitchen. The visits were still supervised, still held at a sterile facility with a court-appointed monitor taking notes. But they were happening. Owen was talking to her again. Slowly, carefully, but he was talking. Last visit, he'd drawn her a picture of a dinosaur. She'd cried in the parking lot afterward, clutching that crumpled piece of paper like it was made of gold. It was taped to a refrigerator now. The town had mostly stopped talking, or maybe we just stopped caring whether they did. People still whispered sometimes. I'd catch looks at the grocery store, hear the occasional comment from a customer on my route, but it didn't have the same weight anymore. Let them talk. We had more important things to focus on. Emma had found a new job. Remote still, but better pay, better hours. She'd been able to afford a decent lawyer now. Not the high-powered kind her ex had, but someone competent. Someone who actually called her back. She was sleeping better too. Not great, but better. The dark circles under her eyes had faded. She smiled more, laughed easier. She was still fighting, still carrying the weight of the custody case. But she wasn't carrying it alone anymore, and neither was I. "I have a visitation next week," she said, breaking the silence. "Wednesday?" "Yeah, 3 to 7. I nodded. "You want me to drive you?" She glanced at me. "You don't have to." "I know, but I want to." She smiled, took a sip of her coffee. "Okay." That had become our shorthand. Okay, not a resignation, not a defeat, just acceptance of the situation, of each other, of the fact that life was messy and hard and didn't come with guarantees, but it was bearable when you had someone next to you. "Owen asked about you," she said. I looked at her. "Yeah?" "At the last visit. He asked who fixed the dinosaur I brought him, the one with the broken tail. I told him a friend helped me. He wanted to know your name." "What did you tell him?" "I told him Daniel. He said that was a good name." She smiled. "Then he asked if Daniel liked dinosaurs. I said I thought you did. I know nothing about dinosaurs." "I know. That's why I told him you'd probably love to learn." I laughed. "Great, now I have homework." "Stegosaurus," she said. "Start there. That's his current favorite." Noted. We fell back into silence. Comfortable. Easy. This had become our routine. Coffee on the porch most mornings. Dinners together during the week. Weekends spent fixing things around her house or running errands or just existing in the same space. Nothing dramatic. Nothing Hollywood. Just life. She still had hard days. Days where the weight of everything crushed her, and she couldn't get out of bed until noon. Days where she'd call me crying because her ex's lawyer had filed another motion. Days where she'd look at Owen's drawing on the fridge and fall apart because 4 hours a month felt like nothing. And I had my own bad days too. Days where work felt suffocating. Days where I'd come home and wonder what the hell I was doing. Days where I'd think about how much easier life had been when I was alone. But those days always passed, and we were always still there on the other side. A few weeks after that conversation, I was working in her backyard, replacing a section of rotted deck boards. She was inside working on her laptop, classical music drifting through the open window. I heard a car pull up out front, doors closing, voices. I set down my hammer and walked around to the front of the house. Owen was standing on the sidewalk holding Emma's hand. Her ex was getting back into his SUV, barely glancing in my direction. The court-appointed monitor, a middle-aged woman with a clipboard, was standing by her own car, talking on her phone. Emma looked at me, eyes wide, panicked. "They said I could bring him here," she said quickly, "for the visit, instead of the facility. The monitor approved it. Is that okay? I looked at Owen. He was small for 5, with Emma's eyes and a T-Rex shirt that had seen better days. He was staring at me with that intense, evaluating look kids have when they're trying to figure out if you're safe. "Yeah," I said. "Of course it's okay." Emma exhaled. "Owen, this is Daniel. The friend I told you about." Owen didn't say anything, just kept staring. I crouched down so I was closer to his height. "Hey, Owen, your mom tells me you're an expert on dinosaurs." He nodded slowly. "I'm trying to learn more about them. Think you could teach me?" He looked at Emma. She nodded encouragingly. "What do you want to know?" he asked quietly. "Well," I said, "I heard Stegosaurus is pretty cool, but I don't know much about it." His face lit up, just a little, but enough. "They have plates on their back," he said, "for protection, and spikes on their tail." "That's awesome. What else?" And just like that, he started talking. About dinosaurs, about his favorite books, about the museum his dad had taken him to last month. Emma stood on the porch, watching, tears streaming down her face. Happy tears this time. The visit lasted 4 hours. We spent most of it in the backyard. Owen helped me measure wood for the deck. Emma made sandwiches. The monitor sat in a lawn chair taking notes, but she smiled a few times. It wasn't perfect. Owen was still cautious around Emma, still asked when his dad was coming back, still didn't fully understand why he couldn't just stay. But he was there, and Emma got to be his mom for a few hours, in her own home, with someone who cared about both of them nearby. When the monitor said it was time to go, Owen hugged Emma tight. "Can I come back?" he asked. "I hope so," Emma said, her voice shaking. He looked at me. "Bye, Daniel." "Bye, Owen. Thanks for teaching me about dinosaurs." He smiled. Small, shy, but real. And then he was gone. Emma stood in the driveway long after the cars pulled away, staring at the empty street. I walked over, stood next to her. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded. "Yeah, I'm okay." And for once, I believed her. A month after that, we were sitting on her back porch after dinner. The deck was finished. The yard was cleaned up. The house felt less like a temporary landing spot and more like a home. Emma had her feet tucked under her, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, even though it wasn't that cold. I was leaning back in the old lawn chair I dragged over from my place weeks ago and never bothered to take back. "I got a call from my lawyer today," she said. I looked at her. "Yeah?" "They're willing to discuss joint custody, supervised at first, then transitioning to unsupervised if I complete a parenting course and maintain stable housing for 6 months. "That's good." "Yeah." She smiled, but it was cautious. "It's not a guarantee, but it's movement. More than I've had in a year. You'll get there. Maybe." She looked at me. "But even if I don't, even if it takes another year, or 2, or 5, I know I'll be okay, because I'm not doing it alone anymore." I reached over, took her hand. "No, you're not." She squeezed my fingers. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not running. For staying when it got hard. For being here even when you didn't have to be. You don't have to keep thanking me." "I know, but I want to." She paused. "You changed my life, Daniel. You changed mine, too." We sat in silence for a while, watching the fireflies blink in the growing dark. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "What?" "Letting me in, getting involved, all of it." I thought about the question, really thought about it. Did I regret the gossip, the judgment, the long nights and the hard conversations and the moments when I didn't know if we'd make it through? No, because all of that had led to this, to sitting on a back porch with someone who saw me, who let me see her, to not feeling invisible anymore. "Not even once," I said. She smiled, leaned her head on my shoulder. "Good. The seasons changed. Custody hearings came and went. Owen's visits became more frequent. The town found new things to talk about. Life kept moving, and we moved with it. Some mornings I'd still wake up in my own house, in the quiet I'd known for 6 years. But more often now, I'd wake up on Emma's couch where I'd fallen asleep after a late movie, or at my kitchen table, where we'd stayed up too late talking. We never officially moved in together. Never made some grand declaration. It just happened, slowly, naturally. Her toothbrush ended up in my bathroom. My coffee mug ended up in her cabinet. Our routines merged until it was hard to remember where one ended and the other began. And it felt right. Not perfect, not some fairy tale, but real. One evening, almost a year after that night in my kitchen, we were sitting on her porch, the place where so much had started, and she turned to me. "Do you think we're going to make it?" she asked. "Make it where?" "I don't know. Wherever people are supposed to end up." I thought about it. "I think we're already there." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we've been so focused on getting through the hard part that we forgot this is the part. This right here, sitting on a porch, drinking coffee, talking about nothing. This is what we were fighting for." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she smiled. "You're right. I know." She laughed, shook her head. "You're getting cocky in your old age. I'm 29. Ancient." I grinned, took her hand. "Yeah, but I'm not doing it alone." She squeezed my fingers. "No, you're not." We sat there as the sun set, the sky turning pink and orange and purple. The street was quiet. The world felt small and manageable. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't think about what came next. Didn't worry about the future. Didn't wonder if this would last. I just sat there, with her, in the moment. And that was enough. That was everything. Life didn't become perfect after that. Emma's custody case took another 8 months to resolve. There were setbacks, hard days, moments where we both wondered if it was worth it. But we kept showing up, kept choosing each other, kept building something real out of the broken pieces we'd both brought to the table. And eventually, slowly, painfully, beautifully, it started to feel less like surviving and more like living. Owen started spending weekends at Emma's house, unsupervised. He called me Daniel but sometimes slipped and called me Mom's friend, which felt close enough. Emma smiled more, slept better, stopped apologizing for taking up space, and I stopped feeling invisible, because I wasn't. Not anymore. I was seen, known, chosen, and that made all the difference.